Investigators missed this blood evidence for months until one detail revealed what really happened that night. Chapter 1. The hook, the night that didn't make sense, something is wrong with this case. Not just emotionally wrong, forensically wrong. You have watched the footage, you have read the headlines, you have followed every update for over 100 days, and something still does not sit right. Today, we are going to talk about why. An 84-year-old woman was taken from her own home in the middle of the night. Blood on the porch, a suspect on camera, a nation watching, and yet no arrest, no public explanation, no closure. 100 days, and the silence from investigators has never broken. Here is what I need you to understand before we go any further. This video is not a recap. We are not going over what you already know. We are going through the blood evidence, the digital timeline, and the one forensic detail that reframes everything you think happened that night. Promise 1, by the end of Chapter 2, you will understand what the blood evidence actually reveals and why photographs fooled everyone. Promise 2, by Chapter 3, you will see exactly where the timeline breaks and what that break means. My name is Charles Brewer. I spent 21 years in law enforcement. I built criminal cases from the ground up. And I am telling you right now, this scene has details that demand a second look. If you have been following Nancy Guthrie's case, subscribe right now and turn on notifications, because what we are about to go through changes the picture entirely. The question is not just who took Nancy Guthrie. The question is whether this scene was designed to make sure you never found out. Because once you understand what the blood evidence does and does not show, everything else in this case starts looking completely different. The evidence, what the blood actually says. Let's start with what everyone online has been saying. The blood looked too limited, too dry, too placed. Viewers across the country looked at those porch images and felt something was off. That instinct matters, but instinct is not forensics. Here is Promise 1 delivered. This is what the blood evidence actually reveals. Small blood deposits do not automatically signal a minor event. Contact transfer can leave tiny droplets. Secondary transfer from an object or surface can create patterns that look deliberate. And until forensic testing confirms whose blood it is, every theory built on a photograph is built on air. Here is what most people do not consider. Blood behaves differently depending on surface texture. It behaves differently depending on temperature and humidity. A droplet on a wooden porch in summer heat dries faster than most people expect. What looks suspicious in a screenshot may be completely consistent with a violent event. Pattern direction matters. Transfer consistency matters. Clotting behavior matters. These are the elements forensic investigators actually examine, not how the blood looks to a camera. Now, the foliage on that porch, viewers noticed it immediately. Something placed near the blood. Something that drew the eye. Was it incidental? Was it environmental? Or was someone managing what the camera would see? Here is what experienced investigators know. Staged scenes can involve real violence, real blood, and real victims. An offender does not need to fabricate an event to manipulate how that event reads to investigators. They only need to shift one detail, move one element, create one distraction. And here is the detail that does not reconcile with anything else on that porch. The foliage placement is inconsistent with natural fall patterns from the nearest vegetation. It did not land there. It was positioned there. That is not a theory. That is an observable forensic inconsistency. And it raises a question that the blood alone cannot answer. And when you place the physical evidence next to the digital record, a picture forms that investigators have been sitting with for over 100 days. The key question: modern investigations do not rely on what people say happened. They rely on what devices recorded. Here is Promise 2. This is exactly where the timeline breaks and what that break means. Investigators in a case like this pull every digital layer available. They do not ask for your memory. They verify against your footprint. Here are the 5 data sources that matter most in this investigation. Phone records, every call, every ping, every timestamped GPS movement logs, minute-by-minute location reconstruction. Rideshare data, Uber logs record pickup, drop-off, route, and driver confirmation independently. Cell tower triangulation. Your phone connects to towers whether you use it or not. Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connection timestamps. Devices handshake with known networks automatically, creating a secondary location record. Now apply that framework to the Uber timeline in this case. The stated account places a specific person at a specific location at a specific time. That account has never been publicly challenged by investigators, but it has also never been publicly confirmed. In 100 days, no authority has stood before a camera and said the timeline checks out. That silence is forensically significant. Now consider Nancy Guthrie's Apple Watch. The conversation online has focused on pacemaker interference. That is the wrong conversation. The right conversation is data. An Apple Watch records movement patterns, it records heart rate, it records connection events and application activity. If that device was active during the window in question, investigators have a minute-by-minute biological and behavioral record of what happened to Nancy Guthrie. They have had that record for 100 days, and they have said nothing about it publicly. Ask yourself this: if the data cleared everyone involved, would investigators still be silent? Tell me in the comments, do you believe investigators already know who did this? Or do you think the evidence still has gaps? I read every response. Because staging a scene, even imperfectly, requires something most criminals do not have: the ability to think past the moment of the crime itself. Suspect Truth watched the footage again, not emotionally, forensically. The figure on that porch is not panicked, not rushed, not reacting. Every movement is measured. Every action appears considered. In criminal behavior analysis, that distinction matters more than almost anything else. Panicked offenders leave chaos. They drop things, they change direction, they move too fast, or freeze completely. What the porch footage shows is the opposite of that. There are three psychological profiles investigators apply to behavior like this. A professional offender operates with learned methodology. They have done this before, or they have studied how it is done. A professional leaves a deliberately managed scene. An emotionally unstable offender acts from impulse. Their behavior is inconsistent. Their scene reflects internal chaos, not external control. The third profile is the most dangerous to an investigation. Someone imitating what they believe criminal behavior should look like. They have watched enough true crime to understand cameras, evidence, and misdirection. They are not a professional, but they perform like one. Now look at the camera interaction on that porch. The foliage placement, the deliberate movement pattern. Which profile does that behavior belong to? Signature behavior is more reliable than physical evidence, says criminal behavior analysis methodology. It tells you not just what someone did, but who they had to be to do it. Investigators have watched this footage. They have the forensics, they have the digital trail. If the profile is clear to us from a YouTube video, it is crystalline to them inside that investigation room. Subscribe right now, because when this case moves, and it will move, we are breaking it down the same day it happens. Which profile do you think fits the behavior on that porch? Tell me below. Your answer might matter more than you think. Because at the end of every piece of evidence, every broken timeline, every behavioral signature, there is still a woman who has not been brought home. The unresolved close here is what we established today. The blood evidence contains a forensic inconsistency that photographs cannot explain. The timeline carries a digital silence that confirmed accounts cannot fill. The behavioral profile on that porch belongs to someone who thought carefully about what they were doing. And investigators have held all of this for over 100 days without a public word. This case is not cold. It is controlled. There is a difference. Nancy Guthrie is not a case file. She is not a headline. She is not a thumbnail. She is an 84-year-old woman who deserved safety inside her own home. And she has not been brought back to the people who love her. To whoever knows something, time does not protect you. Digital evidence does not expire. Behavioral signatures do not disappear. And loyalty has a shelf life that silence eventually outlasts. One question before you go: what is the single detail in this case that you cannot stop thinking about? Tell me in the comments. Because sometimes what haunts the public is exactly what investigators are already watching. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Share this video. Keep Nancy Guthrie's name visible, because pressure matters. Attention matters, and this case is not finished, not even close.